The wonderful thing about Jack is that Jack was not an all-star as a young person. He was not in sports. He was not particularly popular. He was rowdy. But he knew what he wanted to be, and he developed, and he is a real success story. He is a true success story.
Jack was 10 years old and had no brothers or sisters, and I was coming along. So growing up, my brother would never let my parents have a babysitter. My brother used to take me with him to all the drive-ins, sort of like having a puppy along. And the only reason he ended up in the insurance business was that the only big corporation that offered him a job was Glens Falls Insurance Company, until they got a new guy named Carl Harris, and Carl became Jack's mentor. Carl suggested to him that he wasn't really well suited for the corporate environment and he ought to be on the retail side. And so Carl helped him get into the retail business, and Jack went out and bought an answering machine and started Lockton.
I just started knocking on doors and going to contractor events and becoming acquainted around town just like you'd expect any young salesman to do.
Jack had a fire, a love, an intensity about what we were doing and where we were going, and people felt it. I mean, you know, I married him in 90 days. I mean, he promised me gin and tonic on the patio, and he just could lay out a plan, and you accepted it. You wanted to be part of it.
The business was all wrapped up with all of our family events, our daily lives. It all just seemed like it all went together.
At a very young age, we were basically producer partners to our dad. So when we went on family vacations, typically it was with a Lockton client who was a dear friend of Jack's.
Jack looked 5 or 10 years older than he really was, which was a great asset to him. He was 25 years old then, and he was going to contractors and saying, give me your financial statement. I want to handle your bond program.
Jack was the consummate producer. Going out, originating business, making sure things got done for the client.
He was hell-bent on writing business. He was always in a hurry. He was always late. He'd drive around the block once in downtown Kansas City, and if there wasn't a place to park, he'd just park the car. He'd just stop. I mean, he had 1,000 parking tickets.
So we're driving about 80 in the 35-mile-an-hour zone, and he's going through the gears. It's like a juggler. He's got a donut, he's got coffee, he's shifting 3 or 4 times. We're laying rubber in third gear trying to get to this class. That was the essence of Jack. And you better have the urgency because he was urgent. If Jack was urgent, by God, you better be urgent.
Jack didn't like the way I was handling something. And we're out to dinner in a pretty nice restaurant, and he's getting loud, beyond loud, real loud. And we're arguing back and forth because he thought I was dead wrong and I thought he was wrong. And Frost was trying to referee the whole thing. And so we finally throw down our napkins and head to the front door. Jack turns to me and goes, you know I'm right. You think you're right. And Mike's gonna tell us who's right. But I just want you to know I love you. And reaches over and hugs me. And so that's how I'd describe Jack.
We had this client named B.B. Anderson, and B.B. would call 24/7, didn't make any difference. And the phone would ring, and it'd be 4 o'clock in the morning. Jack would jump out of the bed, run in place, and then pick up the phone and say, hello? Like he was standing there waiting for this call.
That was Jack. You know, I used to say about Jack, if he was awake, he was working. It wasn't such a thing as a clock for him. Every one of Jack's friends was his client, and every one of his clients was his friend. And that was his life around those clients. And he was always on the hunt for a new one.
He was very, very innovative. And he'd meet with a client and he would identify a need, and then he would identify an end result that would be a wonderful solution. And to hell with what it took to get there. He'd sell the solution and we'd be back to figuring out how to do it.
Jack had a way of asking me questions about our proposal, even though he'd helped write it. About the price. Why was the price so high? This price is high. Blaming it on me, and slowly but surely inching his way around the desk to where, not physically, but mentally, to the point where he was on the other side of the desk, arm in arm with the contractor. And the contractor was looking at me and thinking, Jesus, look what I have here. I have an advocate in my account.
Jack believed there was an opportunity for a broker to be a true business partner and consultant to the construction industry, and it was the foundation of our business.
Jack was the coach, and we were going to win the Super Bowl. And we were all going to hold up our part. We were all invested. We all believed. We all wanted it.
Jack was a singular force, a persuasive, dynamic, visionary.
Jack was a force in every way and every definition of the word force. Personally, professionally, as a friend, as a founder.
He was an absolute force of nature.
The day that we got the diagnosis it's a blur, really. I mean, I just have little bits of memories of standing next to his bed when he woke up, and he looked up and asked me straight to my face, "Kidney stones?" He was pretty groggy. I shook my head no. And that was a pretty rough moment.
They told me I had, at that point in time, 3 to 6 months to live.
It was going to be a huge void to fill, and it felt like a lot of weight.
Because of Jack's larger-than-life personality, everybody always thought, what if something happened to Jack, what's going to happen to Lockton?
Jack simply asked us to do our best, to step up.
I don't think there was a one of us that wanted to let him down.
He accepted it really quickly, and that allowed him, I believe, to just really go to work on what can I do to either beat this or live as long as I can possibly live.
Just like Lou Gehrig, standing before you today is the luckiest man on the face of the planet. No one could be more blessed than me.
That was a real scary time. And it was just business as usual. And it could have been so different. We all stepped up.
You knew that there was nothing to worry about, and that the company was going to get better and better and better and better, which obviously it has. It's grown 10 times the size since then.
I think he'd be very pleased, very excited. I mean, he's proud. He's proud of what everyone and he created. And I think it would also be like, what's next? Where do we go from here?
When Jack passed away, a lot of people said that we would fold or sell. You know, Dave took over the role. He demonstrated that we could take this business to the next level and beyond.
A lot of people talk about Jack's impact on the culture in terms of his powerful personality, and he was gregarious and aggressive, and that had an impact on the culture as part of the energy. And I think more fundamentally, Jack's biggest impact on the culture was about who Jack was as a young business person. And who Jack was a guy working out of his home, trying to convince contractors that they should choose to do business with him as opposed to some broker with 400 people. And that was a pretty hard sell. And when you got one, the last thing you wanted to do was lose it. That fundamentally high value that he placed on the relationship he had with every single customer is the true foundation for what makes Lockton great.